Welcome back, everyone. Good evening. This is Janice Luke, and we're with the Abundance Tree podcast. I'm with my co-host,
April Capri. What's
April
up, Janice
Capri.
Lou?
What's up, April Capri? How you doing?
Good girl, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's a nice evening. It's a Sunday evening. Very nice evening tonight.
The weather was like literally perfect today. It's the season is changing. I'm not in a hurry for it to get hot, but it was very nice today.
It was nice. It's a nice spring day, y'all. It's very nice today. So, light
And that red
sunshine.
popping. I love that red.
Thank you. Your blue is popping, girl.
Thank you.
I
Red
like
is
it.
really nice on you. I could never do red.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet.
Real.
It's probably my brown sugar skin. No, just play.
Girl, it's
I'm
something,
just
but that
kidding.
red is popping.
Oh, thank you.
It's
You're
so
always popping, girl. You always look nice. So,
you too. You too. Girl, we are doing it in real time.
yes, absolutely. So, speaking of like sunshiny days, who's our guest tonight?
Oh man, he is the author of Inspired Living, Assemble the Puzzle of Your Calling. He has a diverse career journey from corporate leadership to coaching and has helped over 1,000 clients worldwide discover their true calling. Along with his wife, he leads Inspired Stewardship, which is assisting Christian men and couples in aligning their time, talent, and treasures with their purpose. That's so beautiful. He is a certified human behavior senior consultant and a member of the John Maxwell team. Him and his wife offer personalized coaching and workshops aimed at empowering individuals to live authentically and to serve their communities. Join us as we go into his insights on finding fulfillment and living an inspired life. We have Scott Maderer.
All right.
Oh, he is really doing God's work out here. I love it.
Yes, I love it. That's awesome.
I love ethical business people.
Right. Hey,
Scott,
Scott. How are you?
you're muted.
As
There
soon
we
as I
go.
can get it to unmute, I know I'm clicking
You
the
got
button. It's
this.
like click the button, click the button.
You got
But
this.
besides, you got to remember on Zoom, the official greeting of Zoom is, "I'm sorry, you're still muted." We don't say hello. We just say hello. I'm sorry, you're still muted.
You still be there.
Oh man. Yeah, it's
Well,
like a default or whatever that is. Yeah.
that's right. Yeah. Well, welcome to the Abundant Street podcast. We're so glad to have you this evening.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Awesome. So let us know about your journey. How'd you get started and kind of where you are today?
Yeah, so I think everybody wonders, right? When you think about it, you go back in time and how did you get started? So like a lot of people, my journey, if I was looking at it from the beginning and going forward, it's not a straight line, but then when I look at it, from now looking backwards, I can connect a lot of dots and see kind of like, oh yeah, that was preparing me for where I am today. So I actually started, I was always kind of the nerdy kid in school, and I was also really entrepreneurial. So I actually started my first business when I was 12 years old. I got hired by other people to paint, which I live in South Texas. And so it's really hot outside. And so after doing that one summer, I figured out, I kind of don't like being outside and painting. So I'm going to hire all my friends, pay them to actually do the painting, but I'm going to go get the jobs and bid them out. So I literally started a painting business where I was hiring employees and the whole thing. Don't tell anyone because I was probably doing it illegally at that age, but whatever. I was doing it anyway. Worked for my dad. My dad was a small business owner. Eventually, I'm like, I want to go to school. I really want to help people. That's always been what my drive was. So I'm going to go into medical research. So I got a hard science degree. I actually got two bachelor's in science degrees. I started doing some medical research work, and I figured out real quick that about 90% of the energy when you're doing research work is finding grants and money, and 10% is actually doing research. And I didn't really want to chase money for the rest of my life that way. So I pivoted and became a school teacher, which people are like, you're probably one of the most, overqualified school teachers at that point, because I came in with all of the science backgrounds and everything. So I picked up what they call alternative certification, and I started teaching school. I did that for 16 years, loved it, loved the kids, loved teaching science. It was a lot of fun. I taught sixth grade, seventh grade, 10th, 11th, 12th graders, taught all of a bunch of different science. I loved the kids. I loved the work. But, and I know that we've got another school teacher in the room. Anyone who's taught for more than about 30 seconds or knows a teacher also realizes that it's a long job, it's hard hours, it's a lot of work, it's emotionally draining. It's, you know, there's a lot of stuff about it that's tiresome. And quite frankly, you don't get paid all that well either. So as we were struggling with that, I pivoted and I left school teaching and I went into the corporate world. So I worked for a company called Educational Testing Service, which means I went from teaching to testing. In the words of my students, I joined the dark side. So they all said that I was, you know, kind of leaving that. But honestly, the testing industry I was in, a lot of the use of the tests that we were writing state-based tests, and it was honestly used in ways that were helping schools get more funding and other things. So I saw a lot of benefits to testing, but again, worked my way up in the corporate world, did that for 11 years, worked up into a senior position, you know, led a big team of other leaders. I was training and developing leaders, but I was also doing a lot of client and a lot of contract work in a lot of states. So I'm constantly on a plane. I'm constantly in a hotel room. I'm constantly in airports. I know what a lot of airports in the United States look like, and a lot of hotel rooms. And I'll tell you, you know, I got to go to some beautiful cities and see nothing, you know, because you're working, and
Yeah.
that got tiring. That got old. I'm married, a beautiful wife, and had a son at the time, and he's getting older, and I'm on the road all the time. So that entrepreneurial bug kind of re-entered my mind, and I began to do a coaching business on the side. So I'm working a full-time 60-hour, 70-hour a week job in leadership, flying all over the country, and I started coaching people on finances. So I'm literally like on Zoom calls. Only it wasn't Zoom at that time, but pretty quickly I was on Zoom before Zoom was cool, because I actually was one of the early adopters of Zoom. So I'm got on calls, you know, from hotel rooms, from airports, working with clients, doing all of that. And I reversed the climb of the corporate ladder. I said, I literally put written notice in with a year's notice. I gave them over a year's notice and said, I'm going to leave. So I'm in a senior position. So we need to appoint a, you know, who's my replacement. I'll train them. I'll get them in place. I'll support them. And then I'll, you know, move down to a lesser position. And then I'll go down to part-time, and then I'm going to leave. So we did a pretty good transition plan, brought in a new leader. I trained them up. I left, you know, I kind of assisted them for a little while, and then I went down to a part-time position, and then I left. So I started the coaching business in 2011. I've been doing it full time. That's my sole source of income since 2017. My commute is a lot better. Instead of commuting an hour and 20 minutes to work, I now commute about 30 seconds. So I literally walk from the house next door to an office that we built on the property, and I've worked with clients in 16 countries. I call myself a stewardship coach. I help people with time, talent, and treasures. Honestly, most of the folks that I'm working with are people kind of in that position where I was in, where they're like, okay, I really know there's something else I'm supposed to be doing. How do I get from where I am to there? You know, and how do I make that transition in a way that's healthy, that works, that, you know, provides for the family, doesn't create problems, and yet I get to actually go out and do the things that I'm called to do.
Wow, that is so cool. I love it. Like you just like went through the whole corporate thing. I love how you just like didn't just give them 2 weeks notice, and that you did the whole transition thing. I mean, I bet you they really appreciated that because
Actually, I got a call from the VP the day before I left. Literally the day before my last day, I got a call from a VP, the person I turned in the letter to, and they said, "Are you really leaving?" I'm like, yes,
oh
I'm
wow.
really leaving. It's like,
Not the day
Right.
before.
so, literally 24 hours before, they were like, "Are you really leaving?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm really leaving. I'm gone. Like tomorrow is my last day."
But it took you a year to transition out. That's probably why they have to
But I
really
did
kind of
take the
check.
time. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. He just wanted to double check and make sure I hadn't changed my mind.
Right. Well, that's great how that worked out for you. And now that you're working in your own business full time since 2017, that's wonderful. I love what you called it. How you said you help people kind of, I guess, find their purpose when it
Mhm.
comes to time. You said time, talents, and treasures. Is that what you said?
Right.
That's
Right.
awesome.
So
I love that.
I love
I stewardship is kind of the buzzword for stewardship, right?
Yes.
Is managing your time, your talent, and your treasures. And so I that's kind of the areas I work in. Because what I found is for a lot of people that are in those transitions, what keeps them stuck is often they feel like I just don't have enough time, or I don't have the money set up in the right way. I can't, either they have golden handcuffs. It's like, I'm making good money here. How could I possibly leave this job? Or it's, we've got debt, we've got a mortgage, we've got kids, we've got this, we've got that. How do I make a transition in a way where, we don't end up homeless on the street corner, eating out of a garbage can, because I don't want that to happen. And so how do I manage the money? Truth is, that's usually actually the symptom, not the problem. But that's where people usually come to me, is with that time or money kind of holding them back. And then, I trick them, and all we work on is talent, because at the end of the day, the way you handle your time and the way you handle your money, it's all about how you handle yourself. It's really not about time and money. It's about us.
Mindset, right?
Yeah. Mindset, behavior, attitude, accountability, alignment is another word that I use a lot, because what happens a lot of times is well, I'll give you a tip, and people can do this. If you find yourself saying a lot like, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time, just change the language you use. Instead of saying, I don't have enough time, say, that's not a priority for me. Because here's the thing, by saying that out loud, you will change some of your behavior. Because if you say, I don't have time to go to my daughter's soccer game, and you say that, everyone's kind of like, oh, they're busy. It's almost like a badge of honor. But if you say, it's not a priority to go to my daughter's soccer game, now you feel like an idiot. It's like it changes the way you view the situation, and it almost changes the way you think about it, because now you're looking at the things that actually are a priority in your life, and you're going, oh, I'm going to make time to go to my kid's soccer game. That's important. Let me do that. Let me find, what do I have to change or rearrange or move around so that I can go to the soccer game? So literally just changing the language you use sometimes can immediately change some of your behavior.
Wow, that's great. I'm gonna try that too, because I'm the first to say, like, I'm running short on time. It's not enough hours in a day, and blame it on the time, but it's really your prioritization. What do you consider a priority? How are you arranging your day? How are you managing your time? That's a major tip, because I feel like that's a scary place to be in when you're trying to go from 100% working and getting, that stable income to 100% not.
Right.
And people need guidance, and it's a tough bridge to cross by yourself.
Well, and for people that are like in a corporate environment and kind of struggling with that, because you said, kind of going from where it seems like it's stable income to where it's not. What I will point out that is, if you work in a corporate environment, or you work for a W-2 kind of thing, you're actually self-employed with one client. Okay, you're self-employed, and your client is the company or the business or whatever you work for. Because, by the way, if you don't believe that, just stop showing up for work for a week and see what happens.
That's so true. The
That
client
makes sense.
The client will fire you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So because we think about a W-2 wage, and we think about it as stable and safe and reliable and all of these things. And don't get me wrong, there is some safety and some reliability there, but it's not like self-employment is completely unstable and unsafe, and W-2 is completely stable and safe. Because again, I raise your hand if you know somebody that's been let go from a W-2 job and it was a shock to them, and they're like, I don't even know why, it just, or they show up at the morning and it's like, hey, the door's locked, and there's a sign on the door, we've shut down, we're no longer in business.
No notice. Yeah. And like, you gave your job a year's notice. You don't get a 2-week notice, much less a year, when they're going to let you go. It's
not
like
usually.
Not usually. You may get a month or two, a couple of weeks, if they feel
it's pretty rare. Absolutely.
Ugh.
So so when it's a mindset thing. When you start recognizing that, wait a minute, maybe this W-2 job, isn't, in my case, I've got about 20 clients, 30 clients at any given time. So if one of my clients quits or fires me or stops working with it, it's okay. I'll go find a couple of more. It's all right. It's not the end of the world. And sure, there's ups and downs, and there's things you need to do to stabilize that and make, give yourself reserves and other things that you can work from, so that it's not that desperation of, how am I going to eat next week? But at the same time, there are some things about self-employment that can be actually more reliable in some ways, as opposed to less reliable too, if you kind of set it up that way.
I agree
Yeah,
with that.
that's so good. So when it comes to like, okay, you spoke a little bit about on time, but what about like the treasures or the money? Do you
Mhm.
talk about, do you use biblical principles when you talk to your clients about managing their money, especially if they're not, maybe they're in a lot of debt or, you
Mhm.
know, so how do you kind of get that back on track with them?
So I am a Christian and I kind of have that Christian mindset. At the same time, I do not demand that my clients are Christian, nor do I demand that they have those. But what I have discovered is there is a lot of really smart stuff in biblical principles and including about money. There's actually like somewhere around 2,000 passages about money, depending on how you want to count them. Why are there so many things about money? Well, because money tends to be a stumbling block for us. Money gets in our way and changes the way we view things, and we tend to often will behave in a way around money that we wouldn't behave that way around anything else. The money kind of clouds how we look at things. And so yeah, we do a lot of work of getting back down to the fundamentals of, it's very much the same as the time in terms of what's really important to you, what's really your priority. Here's the truth. If you want to tell, you can tell me what's important to you, but if you really want to tell me what's important to you, hand me your calendar and your checkbook and I'll tell you what's important to you.
Hmm.
Because where are you
So
spending your
true.
time and where are you spending your money? That's what's important to you. And a lot of times what it is people actually haven't done that initial hard work of sitting down and saying and writing down what's important to me and why is it important to me. And it's two parts. One is the goal. That's the what. Okay. I want to get out of debt. That is a goal. I know it's a goal because as a beginning, I want to get out of debt. As a middle, I'm getting out of debt. And as an end, I'm out of debt. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's what makes it a goal. A why, on the other hand, is what's the emotional reason behind it? Because here's the truth. If you just want to get out of debt, you can do it. That's math. That's easy. However, I know a lot of people that get out of debt multiple times,
Yeah.
because they don't have a deep enough driver behind it to say, no, 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 no. This is what I'm after. This is the feeling. This is the emotion. This is the reason I want to get out of debt, is so that I can safely save up money and go start that business of my own, because I want to have that freedom and flexibility of being able to work and create my own job that's aligned to my calling, where I don't, I'm not just working for somebody else. That's a drive for me. Okay, but why? Well, because of freedom. Okay, what does freedom mean to you? What does flexibility mean to you? What does that look like? Paint me a picture. When you do all of that, then all of a sudden you start to have an emotional connection to that goal. Now you'll actually follow through even when it's hard. Because guess what? It's going to be hard. There's going to be days and there's going to be times where it's like, oh, why did I want to do this again? And that's going to happen. It's a guarantee. It's a promise. And so that really is a biblical principle of that idea of aligning what's, where your treasure is, there your heart will be, is kind of that idea of when we start putting our money where our values really are, then all of a sudden things start to line up and we start to live in a way that's more authentic and more aligned, and we're actually making progress. And yeah, it's going to be hard, and yeah, it's going to take time, and no, it's not a straight line and not ever perfect, but that's the actual hard work. So because a lot of times we think of it more as as a math problem. Money's not a math problem. Money's a me problem.
Mm.
Mhm. Wow, that
That's a
makes a
gem
lot
right
of
there.
sense.
It
Yeah.
does. I think there's
Um,
power in identifying your whys and identifying, your certain traits and stuff like that. Cause I think a lot of us kind of get caught, especially in corporate, if you're 9 to 5 every day, you get caught in this 9 to 5 cycle and just this autopilotness of life.
It
And you
becomes a
don't even
habit.
really, yeah. And you're not
uh,
even really thinking, you're just moving. You're just here.
right,
Yeah, I
right.
get
I
up, I
love,
get coffee, I go to work, I come
right,
home and I watch Netflix for a couple hours, or I do this or I do that,
Yep.
and then I go to bed, and then I get up the next
right.
morning and I do it again,
There,
and it's a habit.
right. There was so many times where I'm supposed to be going to the gym in the morning, but I'm headed to work, and I'm like,
Yep.
wait a minute. And it's like I'm like, it's subconscious, so it's
Yep.
crazy.
Yeah. Again, raise your hand if you've ever gotten to work, pulled into, the parking spot and gone, I don't remember driving here.
Right,
You know, it's like
exactly.
I literally have no recollection of the drive, and yet I was just driving a 3,000-pound vehicle. You know, it's like at a high rate of speed down the highway, and luckily I didn't kill anyone. But it's, you know, we'll completely tune out and do everything, do it on autopilot, and that's
Right.
honestly, that's, you know, why I talk a lot about living an inspired life, living an authentic life, those sorts of words. Is it takes work to examine your life and go, wait a minute, this is a habit, this is just routine, this is just what do I want to change? You know, what
Yeah.
do I want to make different? Because guess what, folks, change isn't even, it's not easy. Even change that we want isn't easy. You know, just ask anyone who's been on a diet before because they wanted to lose some weight. You know, it's not easy.
Absolutely.
Because we just, change is never easy, even change that we want.
Right. And I just admire how you encourage them to take that deep, even deeper dive, how you get that what their why connected to their goal, but then you ask the more deeper questions. You continue to encourage them to dig deeper. But why? Well, you know, and how does that look for you? Paint the picture. I really admire that because like, you get that emotional connection, like you mentioned, and that
Mhm.
way they can be consistent and stay on track. And so even though it might do, you know, this, you know, up and down, but you know, they can stay
Well,
the course and be
you're going to
intentional about
take,
it.
you know, there's going to be days where it's like, okay, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, one
Yeah,
step to the left, you know, and
right.
whatnot. The other thing is, because a lot of times we create this plan, right? This is going to be my plan. I'm going to go, I'm going to do A, and then I'm going to do B, and then I'm going to
Yep.
do C, and then I'm going to do D, and you know, and I'm going to end with E. So one of the frameworks that I use, so I'm a big believer in process systems and frameworks as opposed to, you know, the just do it kind of thing. Okay. So, and the reason why is because when I give you a tool or a technique, it works for a specific situation. Okay. But if I give you a framework, a way of thinking, a way, you know, like that, changing your language to priority instead of I don't have enough time, that you can start applying in a lot of different ways. So frameworks are more flexible. So one of the frameworks that I teach people is when you're doing this work, when you're doing whatever it is, it's okay, plan, make a plan, right? So you've got your why, you kind of know where you want to go and why you want to go there. So you made a plan, getting out of debt. I'm going to get out of debt, you know, okay, and this is going to be my first step. This is what I'm going to start with. Plan, execute, mean do something. Okay. By the way, if you make a plan and you never execute, nothing ever happens. So you got to do something. You got to take some action. You take some action. Here's the part that, and most people are pretty, you know, most people are pretty good at the first one. Less people, but some people are okay with the second one. But here's where it kicks in. Once you've executed, then you actually have to stop and review what happened. Actually
Mm,
think about, what feedback did I get? What happened? What was the good? What was the bad? What would I do different? What was positive? What, you know, what should I have changed? Blah, blah. Get information and actually take the time to think about it. So it's review and reflect are the two words that I use. And then the last one is repeat, revise and repeat. Because what happens is if you got data, if you know you're working to get out of debt, it's like, well, that didn't work. Then don't go back and do the same thing over and over again because you're going to get
right.
exactly the same results. You know,
Yeah.
instead revise and try something a little different. Think of it, I'm a science teacher, think of it like running experiments. You know, you're running an experiment, you're getting data. It's not good or bad, it's not right or wrong, you're just getting information. The interesting thing about that too is it makes you more willing to experiment. And it means that you're end up, you know, that A, B, C, D, E, F, G kind of plan may end up being like A, W, you know, and then bounce over to D and then over to F because you're revising as you go. That route isn't going to be, because here's the thing, we have that picture in our head. Our route's going to be this nice straight line. Folks, nobody's route is this nice straight line until you connect the dots in reverse. It really isn't. I guarantee you, anyone you know who's successful, ask them if they thought whatever they're doing now that has made them successful, if they thought that that's not only was what they were going to do, occasionally they'll say yes to that, but then ask them, but did you get here the way you thought you were going to get here? The answer is
No.
almost never yes. Okay. I think
Yeah.
I've asked hundreds and hundreds of people that question. And I think I've had like one yes in all of the years, you know, and it's like, and then they went on and said, it was just pure luck, that it happened the way I thought it was going to happen. It was not really intentional. It just kind of stumbled into it. So we just our life doesn't work that way because we're constantly getting that feedback and that input from other places, from other people. Life changes, life happens, again, who would have put global pandemic on my, bingo card a few years ago? And yet that happened, and it created change and it created opportunity, but it created pain, it created grief, all of these different things happen. If you just kept living your plan as if nothing had changed, it didn't work well. You had to pivot and change and revise and reflect and move with the times.
Very true.
Absolutely. Yes, I could definitely relate with the data-driven kind of way to revise and to pivot if you need to, because being the teacher that I am as well, I'm not a science teacher, but I am a teacher to where I have to look at data a lot and I have to make decisions
Absolutely.
based on the data. So that makes the total sense. And I can definitely relate to that. I think that's great. I think that's a gem drop there. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
if you're a teacher and you do your lesson plan and it falls flat, you're like, well, I'm going to do that one exactly the same way next year. You're not real bright.
Exactly.
It's like, you probably need to look for a different job because that's not going to work real well.
Exactly.
No,
That's
I always
great.
tend to speak highly of like coaching and mentorship, just because, like you said, like it's not going to be like a constant A through D. It's going to change. You're going, like, crazy things are going to sporadically, randomly happen, and you're going to be confused and you can't figure out everything by yourself. So I really, I always encourage people to like seek good mentorship and coaching, because it's hard to do it by yourself. You can't figure everything else out, especially like if you're getting the information from somebody that's already done it, somebody that's already tested this, somebody who's already proven that the results work. It's not like a shortcut, but I feel like it's such a much cleaner path than going down 50 dead ends before you finally figure out, what's at the other side of the tunnel,
Yeah, it actually can be a shortcut in some ways, because what it does is it lets you learn from someone else's mistakes instead of making them yourself. And I mean, at the end of the day, right, in theory, most of us would rather learn from somebody else's mistakes than our own. But and with coaching, a lot of times the value of a coach is that accountability piece. Okay, because I'm sorry, there is just something about, I've got to get on a phone next week with Scott and tell him whether or not I did the homework that I said I was going to do. And there's a certain degree to which people are like, I don't want to tell him I didn't do it, so I'll go ahead and get it done. And that, that's the accountability piece, right? But there's also value sometimes in, I'm not, as a coach, quite frankly, I'm not wedded to your decision because it's your decision. I'm not wedded to your situation because it's your situation. It's not mine. So I can kind of almost stand outside of it in a way and ask questions and probe and get you to think about it and go, yeah, wait a minute, that's not exactly what I meant, or that's not exactly what I was thinking, or hold on, let me reframe that, let me re-speak that, let me, come at it. It's what you asked earlier about asking that deeper, the deeper questions. I jokingly say that sometimes a coach their job is to be a toddler. Why? It's like, we kind of, now we try to do it nicer than that and not ask like your 3-year-old does and tug on their, but it is, there's a degree to which it's kind of like, wait a minute, why do you want to do that? What is the driver behind it? Because you said it earlier, so many of us end up in these loops of habit and behavior that we're doing that we haven't ever examined. And by the way, sometimes those loops and those behaviors were programmed into us when we were a little bitty kid. Mom said something one time, or your dad said something one time, or whatever, and now that voice is in your head and you hear that the rest of your life.
Absolutely. And it's good though, because your coach, like, you can give people, like you say, you're looking in, you give them a fresh perspective as well to think about things. So it's good to have that in your ear. I like to say the coach in my ear, but
yeah,
so
there's several of things that I say as a coach that I say often enough that now clients like finish my sentences for me. It's like I start to say the expression and they're like, yes, we got it. Okay. It's like, all right, good. Then you got it. Then just,
hey, that's retention, man. That's winning. That's winning. That's retention. I think
absolutely,
repetition is powerful. Yeah. If they're retaining the information, that's great.
Yeah. So it's
So,
like, it's progress, not perfect is one of the expressions that I use. It's a process, not an event, because, we want everything to be an event, right? We want it to be done and it's over. It's like, it's never an event. It's always a process, relationships, career,
yeah,
spiritual
Right.
walk. I don't care what component of your life it is. It's not one and done. It's a
right.
process.
Absolutely. So we talked about time, money, and like treasures. Now the talent part of it, like, how do you like pull the people's talent out when you're coaching them?
So
Is it
that,
like
again, it's
self-confidence?
questions.
Okay.
It's questions. So I'll give you a quick activity that folks can use. So if you're a more mature person, I'll just put it that way so I don't say old. Oh wait, I just said it. You can look back on your life, right? And look at all the things you've done. And I'm not just talking about career and job and those sorts of things. I mean volunteer activities, relationships, time as a kid, whatever, summer camp. I don't care. All the stuff you can think of and dredge up in your life, and just start writing down, what are things I loved about it? What are things I didn't like about it? And then start looking for patterns. What are the things, what are the commonalities? What are the things that give you energy, that feed your soul, that give you life? And start looking for those patterns. And a lot of times out of that will bubble up those areas, because we're often blind to it. We're often good at it. And so, other people are like, oh man, that goes so easy to you. And you're like, yeah, it comes easy to everybody. No, it doesn't. Okay. Most of the time it doesn't. So you're looking for those patterns. The other one is a forward looking activity. And so this works well for younger folks, or maybe folks that are starting out. By the way, us more mature folks like me can do this too. It still works. So imagine for a minute that 5 years from today, you're walking through an airport. You're walking through that airport and you run, as you get to the place where the flight's going to leave, sure enough, it comes across flight delayed. You got a 4-hour layover all of a sudden. So you're stuck in an airport for 4 hours. You do what anyone does when they're stuck in an airport for a 4-hour layover. You go either find a restaurant or a bar. You're either going to get a bite to eat or get a drink, whatever it is, right? And as you walk into whichever place it is of your choice, you happen to run into a friend that you haven't seen for the last 5 years. It's a dear friend. You've just lost touch with them and haven't seen them for the last 5 years. They moved away. Turns out they've got a layover too. And as you sit down at the restaurant table and order a bite to eat and start talking to each other, your friend looks at you and says, man, how have the last 5 years been for you? And remember, this is 5 years in the future. And you look at your friend and you say, this has been the best 5 years of my life because. Your job is to write to me, tell me what happens after because. What did you say after the word because? What would make this next 5 years the best life? What's about your relationships? What about your career? What about your finances? What about your spiritual walk? What about all of the different components of your life? Think through them and say, what would make me honestly tell someone this has been the best 5 years of my life? And between those two activities, you usually start to mine out of that some patterns that give you a direction. Now, again, they're not the final destination. We're back to that revise, plan, execute, revise loop kind of thing. But it at least gives you a place to start going so that you can begin to get information about, hey, what within this do I want to do? And what is it going to look like? And you can start the process.
I
Wow,
think
I
that's a
love
great
it.
exercise to kind of start reconditioning your brain to think in a different pattern. We got about 5 minutes left. Can we talk about your book and what do you explain in your book?
So my book is Inspired Living. Some of these activities that I've actually been sharing on the call are in there, and there'll be resources and things you can download as well. So the basic idea of the book is what I found over the last, many years now of working with clients, that a lot of times when we're putting together our call, we're trying to figure out that direction that we're supposed to be going. The analogy I use is it's like putting together a puzzle. But it's like putting together a puzzle where the picture on the cover of the box changes. And sometimes you've got extra pieces in the box, and sometimes you're missing some pieces. And
Man,
by the
you ain't
way, that
lying.
changes too. It's like
You are not lying.
it's like one day you look at the box and it's like, where did these extra pieces come from? somebody
Here's the
else's
one I need.
I
somebody
love
else's puzzle is in my box. What happened? And other days you look down and you're like, I swear there was a quarter piece in here yesterday. Where'd it go?
Yeah.
Right. And the picture keeps changing, because what not only is the pieces changing, so is the picture, because the direction you want to go today, guess what? It's a little different than the direction you wanted to go 6 months or 6 years ago. So it is a dynamic process. And so the subtitle is Assembling the Puzzle of Your Calling by Mastering Your Time, Your Talent, and Your Treasures. And we kind of go through that framework process of how do you sit down and go through these 3 areas, examine your life, and then use what you find out to actually move you forward in action towards moving towards whatever your real calling is. And so it'll actually be coming out July 2nd of 2024. It's available now for pre-sale and all of that. Morgan James is my publisher. They've been great to work with. And I literally got an email earlier today that said, hey, you can get the copies, but as an author, I can pre-order copies. And they're like, they're available now. It's like, yay. So
All
That's
I had a
right.
big milestone today. So
Congratulations on your book.
Congratulations.
Thank
Right
you.
on time for Independence Day. Let's free up some minds out here. I love it.
Right. I love it. I love the whole concept with the puzzle as well. That's so true. I never heard it described that way, but it's so true. I love that. So I understand that you have your own podcast as well. Can you talk a little bit about your Inspired Stewardship podcast? Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
My website, my business name, and my podcast is all named Inspired Stewardship. And that is, I've been doing that since 2018. I started the podcast with the thought of, I'm going to do this for 6 months and see if I like it. I haven't gotten an answer yet, so I'm still doing it. I haven't figured out if I like it yet or not. But yeah, we're up to about 1,500 episodes.
Wow.
The focus of it is, I used to do solo episodes 5 days a week, and then an interview 1 day a week, and then eventually I was doing an interview 2 days a week. And right now I release a couple of interviews and a solo episode every week. So I've been doing that, consistently for years, with the idea of kind of sharing inspirational stories and then sharing actionable tips, things that you can put into action. Most of the episodes are 20 to 30 minutes. They're really meant to be kind of a listen to it on your way to work or while you're having coffee in the morning, and then get on with your day. Because again, I'm a big believer in, don't just listen and consume, go take action, go get something done. So I don't want it to be a 4-hour marathon kind of podcast episode.
Absolutely.
Great. I love your motto. Where can people find you? I know it's Inspired Living, but where can people find you?
So the book is actually inspiredlivingbook.com, but I actually set up a page just for your listeners. So if you'll go over to inspiredstewardship.com/abundance, that has a link there. It has a link to where the book is. It's got some free resources that if you heard something that I said and you're like, hey, I need some help in that area, it's got some free resources on time, talent, and treasures. It's actually got a place that folks can jump on a call with me if you've got some questions, or because I talked too fast, you missed something that I said and you couldn't find the right timestamp or whatever, or you just want to ask some follow-up questions. I always try to make myself available for that as well. So all of those resources are over at inspiredstewardship.com/abundance.
Awesome.
Inspired Stewardship, my bad.
Inspiredstewardship.com/abundance. Y'all go and get all those free resources. It's awesome. Thank you so much for setting that up for us and for our
Absolutely.
viewers.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you. Definitely, you dropped a lot of gems. I see from the start just a really, really strong leadership characteristic in you, even from an early age. So thank you so much for sharing that with other people, and thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. I was honored to be here. I hope the listeners got some value.
absolutely. And we hope to have you back in the future for some updates. So
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to.
awesome.
Totally.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you all for
you, guys.
listening. Yeah. Y'all have a great night. Bye.